Hi, everybody. It's JT from the CC and JT Amateur Hour. Production values go to die, but today we're wearing our Nevada Author Network hat. CC and I are part of Two More Books, LLC, and we have formed a partnership with the Sierra Arts Foundation and the Sierra Arts literary community to highlight, spotlight, raise the visibility of writers in Northern Nevada. And we've had some excellent podcasts, and this is going to be another one. And we are very pleased and happy to be joined by Dr. Danny Nielsen. Dr. Nielsen, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me on, JT and Cassidy. This is such a great opportunity, and I'm honored. Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Do you prefer Dr. Nielsen or do you prefer Danny?
Just Danny. Yeah, call me Danny. It's great. Yeah,
okay.
Thanks.
So, Danny, we're really excited to have you on board because we our Nevada writers, without exception, are very talented. So, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself and tell us about you?
Yeah. I live here in Reno. I moved up here from Bishop, California in 2016 to study at University of Nevada here in a PhD program, and I still work on campus. I finished school a couple years ago, and I'm a postdoc researcher here, and my program was ecology, evolution, and conservation biology, but I study small mammals, and in particular desert wood rats I've spent a lot of time working with. So, and that work, at least during my school years, early on, I spent a lot of time traveling throughout Nevada and California into the desert for field work. And so that's kind of those years, as well as previous years as a biologist with various state and federal agencies and other school programs, kind of formed the basis of my book that I wrote.
And tell us about that book, because I was reading through it. I opened up the preview, and it's like, I have to tell you too, that these podcasts have been fatal to our to be read pile. It's just these things have just been climbing. Yeah. I'm pretty sure yours is going to be thrown onto this stack too. But tell us about your book.
Yeah, so it's the book is called Straight Flossin and Other Stories of the American West. Unfortunately, I'm out of copies of my own. I think I gave the last one to the Depot Gallery there over in Sparks, but otherwise I'd show you what it looks like. But yeah, it's a collection of short stories and kind of essays, kind of written in the creative nonfiction genre. And like I mentioned, they really just kind of follow a lot of my experiences as a biologist throughout the West, and some of the exciting experiences I've had running into wild animals and skunks and running away from fires, chasing down wood rats. And often the animals aren't what often scare me when I'm out in the middle of nowhere. It's other people sometimes. So there's some run-ins with weird folks out in the desert that are featured in the book as well. But I try to take a very observant approach to the way I write, and so I had fun with it. It really started as kind of a blog. I was just writing about my experiences and kind of having fun with it, and then I ended up kind of having enough put together that I pitched it to a small publisher and was able to get it out as a book. So it was great.
You are actually our second doctor that we've interviewed, and coincidentally, the first doctor that we interviewed was dealing with memoir writing, which is kind of what you were doing there, short stories, memoir writing. And the challenge, she said that the challenge she's had was developing that kind of character art from a writing, and because this is a writing podcast, what was your most challenging part of writing the book in a way of technique or point of view, or what was the biggest challenge of writing a memoir type book like you did?
Yeah, gosh, it's a good question. I think partly by the time I kind of put together enough stories that I thought I could maybe publish something, I felt like I got real lucky in finding a small publisher that was interested in kind of regional work throughout the eastern Sierra Nevada and the deserts of the West. And so I think when I kind of had that opportunity and the publisher wanted to work with me, I had already written quite a bit, but I didn't have enough for a book yet. And even the book now, it's quite short. It's a pretty slim volume, but I think I think a lot of the writing I had already done, and it was, I guess, once I started working with the publisher and editing and adding more to it, then I had to kind of think about, okay, what kind of thread am I going to try to connect all these stories together with? And So there were some stories that I had originally thought I would put in the book and ended up not going. Others I had to keep writing more. But I think also their memoir, I guess, in the sense that it's like stories about my experiences, but I kind of leaned heavily on this creative nonfiction idea too. So I was trying to free myself from kind of like the strict, memoir or autobiographical writing of my experiences. So I think that made it fun in a way too. But yeah, I think it was just a challenge. Once I had the idea, there was like, okay, how do I continue writing more stories to fit this narrative thread and kind of keep it one, cohesive thing. And so there's a few characters and themes that kind of are featured throughout the book that are kind of that I go back to frequently in there. But I think just realizing that like it takes a lot of writing to make a book, right?
Oh yeah.
You write a lot and then you continue writing and you just keep writing more and more and more and then editing over and over and over again. To kind of get that down.
So you mentioned that you didn't include everything in the book. Does that mean that maybe you have future books planned, or are you going to focus more on your biology and ecology work?
Yeah, well, great question, Cassidy. So I do have a stack or like a file folder, I suppose, of other stories that I wrote. I don't know, maybe one day I'll go back to those. I've actually been taking a stab at writing a novel, so I'm working on that, and we'll see where that goes. That's a lot of writing too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you mentioned that you went with a small publisher. Did you actually go to talk to University of Nevada Press at all, or did you just shop it out to different publishers?
At the time, I didn't. I mean, I had never published a book. I had never really thought too much about what that would mean. So I think out of my own naivety, I didn't even think about the fact that I was here at University of Nevada that has the University of Nevada Press. But a lot of my stories were based in and around, southeastern or kind of eastern California. And so I was Googling like publishers in the area, and I happened to find this Whistling Rabbit Press, small boutique publisher out of San Diego, and she was interested. I pitched her my idea and sent her some stories, and they liked it. So I ended up working with them. So yeah, it worked out, and like I said, I feel really lucky that I found a publisher like I did. But we'll see where where my novel writing efforts go. I don't know. I'll probably search around more when I'm done with that.
Almost everybody we've interviewed, I don't think we have actually interviewed a native Nevadan yet. But you, like us, were transplants. And you moved to the West young, but as you mentioned in your biography, it's autobiography, the blurb, is that there was a little bit of a culture shock. But you've obviously settled in, traveled the deserts, traveled the mountains. And I've asked this question about other writers based in Nevada who write about Nevada. What is it about the state that makes us write about it?
Yeah, great question. As I mentioned a little bit in that kind of biographical sketch, I grew up in Alabama, and my parents moved to Utah when I was 15. So it's culture shock moving from the deep south to Utah. My family's Mormon, so the other part of that was I grew up in the deep south during the late 80s and 90s as like kind of this like pariah, and then moved to Utah where it was kind of like the opposite side of the coin. But the culture shock was there, but then just the landscape, I felt like I lost all my friends. It was all very like new. But then as I like finished high school and met friends and started getting into like outdoor recreation, I developed this like very love and just like obsession with the West. And then I moved around a lot for college. I did a master's degree at Arizona State University and lived in Mesa, like the Phoenix Valley, for a couple years, and worked in Southern Nevada doing field work for that, and then moved and worked in Yosemite for a couple summers seasonally and throughout the desert as well for that job. And then I actually did a couple years, my wife now, but at the time we're dating, she was in school, got into a physician assistant program in North Carolina. We moved back east for kind of the southeast for a couple years, and by that time I had spent like a pretty solid decade of my life just rooting around the deserts of the West, and quickly realized that I was not like gonna make it long term back there anymore. Initially I thought, oh yeah, I'm familiar with the South, I like it out here, and it is a beautiful place, you know, the ocean, the mountains, it's all very nice out there. But I think, getting back to your original question about Nevada, I think just the vast openness and access to public lands we have here, that you could just kind of disappear off the grid for days at a time, really just like inspires me. And I think the ability to kind of get lost out here is really what keeps me coming back and wanting to write about it.
Excellent. Yeah, we can so relate to that, because we came from different climates like yourself, and the first color you see in Nevada is brown. So much brown, especially coming from the deep South like yourself, which the only brown you probably saw was a burger wrapper. Then you come to a place like this, and it's just that's almost all you see. So it must be something. But I want to ask you about your first experience, not looking down at the biology, which is your degree, but looking up at the night sky. Do you remember that first all-encompassing view of the night sky? And have you ever thought about, seeing the stars, Milky Way, that whole experience? And then have you ever thought about, like, perhaps transposing that into prose?
Yeah, and I don't know how much you've looked at the book, but it's kind of funny you asked that. The night sky is kind of featured heavily in that throughout the stories, and the front cover, which is really cool, kind of has that featured. The night sky is a very important thing to me. I remember even as a kid in Alabama, my parents driving us out in the countryside for like meteor showers and stuff. But even out there, you're never far enough away from like a big enough city or just sprawling developments to really get that night sky. I think one memory that really sticks in my mind with that is when I was living in Arizona and working in southern Nevada, I took a road trip from like basically Vegas or Mesquite, Nevada, drove up through Death Valley to, we were going to go climb Mount Whitney. On the drive through Death Valley at night, we stopped somewhere on the side of the road, and I remember looking up, and it's so dark that I remember vividly thinking like this was the most stars I had seen ever. The Milky Way was there, just the richness of the cosmos kind of just blanketing everything around us. That was pretty powerful. And I even when I spent all these nights alone doing field work, catching small mammals, you have to often spend a lot of time at night. So I had the little camera and a tripod, and I got real geeked out on like trying to take night photography pictures for a while. My camera's not even like super nice, but I was able to get some decent shots with the Milky Way and getting the stars in. And the West in Nevada, it's very dark skies. Gotta love it here.
And what you said would translate almost directly into prose. What you said there is, as you said, you already mentioned it in your book, but when it comes time perhaps to write your other book or write your next nonfiction, what you're saying translate just fine. Okay, so we're wrapping up here. Give us the title of your book one more time and tell us where we can find it.
Yeah, so the book, it's Straight Flossin and Other Stories of the American West. It's available in paperback and digital versions online anywhere. There's one or two bookstores around town. I think there's a fairly new bookstore in Northwest Reno, Thistle and Nightshade. They had a copy. I'm not sure if they've sold that, but they had it in stock. You can also get it through the publisher, Whistling Rabbit Press, or you can get it there's a copy at the Depot Gallery in Sparks. And also it's available at the library. You can check it out from the University of Nevada Library, as well as the Washoe County Library has a copy available. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And where can we find you on the internet? Where people want to check you out? Where's your social media sites? And do you have a website yet?
I have a website. I think I shared it with you. It could be linked. I think if you just search Danny Nielsen 0 at WordPress.com, that should find me. Okay. Social media, I've got Instagram that I pretty much use. You can find me on there. I have two accounts now. I have one that's Touching Gray, and then another one that's just my name. Danny Nielsen. And Facebook, I'm on Facebook as well, Danny Nielsen. You can find me there. Yep.
Okay, excellent. Anything else
Yeah.
you want to throw out there for people who may be watching this?
Yeah, I just, if anybody's interested in writing, I say just do it. You never know what you're going to write until you sit down and start putting words on a page. So it's fun. It helps you process things that you experience, and it can be a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Great advice. Okay, thank you, Dr. Nielsen, Dr. Danny Nielsen, who joins us today from University of Nevada. And again, this is a collaboration between Two More Books LLC and the Sierra Arts Foundation and the Sierra Arts Literary Community, an effort to highlight, and I keep saying highlight and elevate, which are synonyms, but to shine a spotlight on the writers in Northern Nevada. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Everybody take care. Talk to you later.
Thank you again, JT and Cassidy. Yeah, have a great day.
You too.
You too.
Bye.